Here's what happened. Today, there was a conversation going on where there was this talk about change and how change has been change is happening really fast in the world that we live in today. And there's this decision that many people are going to be making unconsciously where you decide, are you going to be in the driver's seat for your life? And are you going to use technology and the resources that we have available to us to use that to move towards the vision you have for your life and use it for a direction that you're headed? Or are you going to react to what life throws your way and feel like this driftwood just going along in the ocean, which is actually John Butcher. I heard that for the first time from him, where it's like, feeling like you're driftwood, just going and reacting to life. And it can feel very chaotic in that way. And I know that you being like me, you want to be in that driver's seat of life and moving towards who does you want to become, a vision you have for your life. You want to make changes, but it can feel overwhelming to get into that driver's seat and understand where to start and navigate. Because you could start in multiple different areas. That's the truth of it. But what I want to do today with you is go through what I call the habit audit, where it's diving into what it looks like in your day for these behaviors that you're doing that are considered habits, and being able to understand the bigger picture for yourself so that you can make those changes for how you avoid burnout. This is Make Burnout Extinct. I'm Robert David Weeks. Thanks for taking the time to be here. I know you could be doing a bunch of different stuff. Speaking of the changes that come up and how fast the world's moving. So by you being here, it says something of wanting to focus on this habit audit. And if you're new here, welcome. And if you haven't done it yet, you can subscribe and follow the show for the latest episodes. And I'm really excited that you're here to be a part of this movement that's around this one mission of Make Burnout Extinct. And I have a few commitments for you that I want to get into. The first commitment is to continue to grow this show and this movement around this one mission of Make Burnout Extinct. And so by you subscribing, following, that helps to support that commitment. And it gets me so excited to see where this is moving towards for this mission of Make Burnout Extinct with that movement behind it. And then the second commitment I have for you is to be honest with you. So many times leading up to my burnout in 2018 after the social media conference where 500 people came together, and I felt I had to be perfect in that situation as the organizer. But the issue was I lied so many times along the way. And that's one of the reasons that I hit my burnout, because I thought I had to be perfect. I thought I couldn't share my challenges and what was coming up for me personally with my team, with the community overall, even with my family in certain situations. And so that was an intense amount of pressure, it felt like. And I'm sure you can relate to that in some way for that pressure that you feel. So my commitment is to be honest, to share with you not just the results of Make Burnout Extinct, which in the simplest form is to feel more energized in your day, to feel that aliveness of life rather than going through the day-to-day motions and just like feeling like you're moving through the motions of the day. And it's to connect back to that excitement of the momentum to move towards the vision you have for your life. It's all those results, and it's the hard work. It's putting in the effort. It's showing up even when you don't feel like it in a lot of moments. And it's realizing that you're going to get off track. Perfection doesn't exist. And so when you get off track, it's then being able to get back on track. It's all of that. It's both terrifying, exciting, and at moments, just there's a lot of doubt that can come up along the way in the journey. And so what I want to do with this commitment of being honest with you is to set expectations for you to prepare for what it takes to make burnout extinct and to realize that it's possible for you, because it's signals from your body that are letting you know you're moving towards hitting burnout. And it's for you to listen to those signals and recognize them, and then make changes to your behavior and your habits to move towards making burnout extinct. So thank you for being here. Let's get into it for today. Today, what I want to go through is this habit audit. I think this is going to be really exciting for you to explore and try for yourself, especially if it's feeling very overwhelming right now for you to make any progress in moving towards making burnout extinct. Because with the day can feel very busy for you with a lot of responsibilities. If that's with family, to friends, to work, partner, to yourself for your health and fitness. And so with all these different things, it can feel like you have a lot going on. And so when it comes to adding something new in, which is, making the changes, that can feel overwhelming. to the point where you're just like, I'm not going to do this. I'll get to it tomorrow. I'll get to it tomorrow. Get to it tomorrow. The amount of times I've told myself I'm going to get to it tomorrow, and then I keep pushing it off, I've lost count on it. So I'm with you, and I resonate with what you could be going through. And I want you to let you know that you're not alone in this. So I feel with this habit audit, what's really important to set for expectations for you is that it is something that can be really big for the body, for a change that can happen. It's usually, with this, the goal is to just do this once to get started for the momentum. And then if you want to revisit it and try it out again, you can. But it's usually, you have these like one-time decisions to make and actions to make that can create ripple effects. And this is one of those. So because of that, because it's so big, that can create a lot of natural resistance from the body before you get started. I've talked about it before for the habit formation process. For habits, there's 3 phases: the awkward phase, the angry phase, and then the autopilot phase. And to go through them quickly for you, awkward, it's just messy when you first get started. And so that's natural because you're trying to fit something into your schedule for a habit. Then you get to the angry phase where there's natural resistance that can come up from the body, because with anything new, and as you put more repetition, it's the realization for the body that this might be something that's permanent for a new change. And so that can create this uncertainty, which then can produce this fear within the body and a stress response from the body for the perceived threat. And so that's where you can get this natural resistance. It can feel like anger. It can feel like frustration, or frustration comes up for you. You could feel like you're hitting against an imaginary wall. You might be really tired and just like, I don't want to show up and put those reps in. So that happens for that resistance. And then you move into the autopilot phase. And that's where it's best example I use for this is like brushing your teeth. It's just something where it's neutral for energy. Like you're not super excited for it, unless you're that type of person that's like super into it, or it's not super draining either. It's just like neutral. It's like something you just do. And so those are 3 phases. But sometimes with like these big habits to get implemented, and not even a habit because you're not repeating this over a long period of time, but these actions that you're taking that can help you to identify certain habits to make changes to what you're doing in your behavior, that can create some intense resistance right off the start, because your mind can get into this whole like, oh, it's this big thing, I'm gonna have to put so much energy and time towards it. And that can create this overwhelming bubble that bubbles up in the body. And what I want to remind you is that the body's like a balloon. It can handle some of that overwhelm, right? It can handle the stress, it can handle the anxiety. But similar to a balloon, if you're not able to let the air out of the balloon, it's going to pop. And for the body, that's hitting burnout, which again, my definition for that is a major life transition that is forced on you by your body. You think about it, it's a struggle to really get out of bed and move on with your day. So what happens is you got to release that air out of the balloon. Similar for the body, you got to release the stress out of the body. And that's where it comes back to these burnout-proof habits that I've talked about before, of figuring out these habits that are energizing for you, that allow for you to connect back to your body and to move that stress out of the body. So now coming back to this, this feeling of overwhelm, what I want to remind you of is that actually it's not going to be as intense of energy that you think. Usually is how it goes down, because we tend to think bigger for these type of situations, usually, where it can feel like super overwhelming. But then when you get started, you're like, you get excited, because what this habit audit is it helps you to identify what habits are energizing for you, that you can consider burnout proof habits in your day, and then what habits are draining for you. And I come back to, with clarity, the more you understand something, less fear can grow. And so that's going to create this momentum of excitement for you as you're getting started with this. And you're then going to be able to notice these patterns, which that can cause the body to release dopamine, that reward, because you're noticing connection points in your day. And you're like, oh, that's why I get really pissed off at this time of day, because I'm doing this habit that's really draining for me. Or this is really a struggle, is I wait to do the dishes at the end of the night when I could just do them, after I'm done eating. And that could be a great improvement for how I'm feeling. And so I'm not feeling like I have a bunch of stuff stacked up at the end of the night, and then I feel rushed going to bed, and then I'm sleeping on it, right? So that could be an example. So that's what's so cool, is it starts to create connections for you that can create that excitement to bubble up. And that's my reminder for you, is that yes, you'll naturally have this resistance that comes up from the body when you get started, honor that resistance, and then realize you can move through this and you can move forward and you can take this action. So I want to break it down for habit audit, how to do that in its simplest form. You can take inspiration from this and implement it to your own style. I go back to the quote from John Butcher, someone I really admire and how he lives his life. And that is, there is no one right way, but there is a right way for you. And so that's really important, is why I can always come back to that, taking the time to really discover what that is for you. So for the habit audit, how to break it down is the night before, realize to set the intention that you're going to do a habit audit. So give yourself space and time to prepare. So you can even do this at the beginning of the week of figuring out which day in the week you're going to choose for this. It could be the night before. If you're like me, you tend to push things off till as late as you can do it, but make sure it's the night before that you make the intention that you're going to do a habit audit. And what this involves is you, again, just simply identifying what habits energize you and then what habits drain you. And how you can do that is by taking like a sheet of paper, or you could put it on a notes app for your phone or whatever other form. If that's voice recording it, you could voice record it too. So you have different methods to do this, but it's going through and documenting the actions that you're taking in your day and noticing what is energizing and what's draining. And I'll get into those body sensations so you can just get some ideas if you're not sure what energizing feels for you or what draining feels for you. But with these habits, it's going through every single part of your day, right? And so that's where the overwhelm can come in, is, okay, what's happening in the morning? What happens right when you wake up? To what happens if it's with conversations with a partner, to yourself, to what's happening for your self-talk. So that how you break it down is your actual actions externally that you're doing. And so that could be like waking up, getting out of bed. What's the internal actions that are happening? That's what you're saying to yourself. Thoughts that are passing through. And then what are the interactions you're having with other people? And that's another one, is understanding those three areas is really powerful to identify what are the habits that are super energizing, then draining. And it's breaking it all down. What happens with work? What happens when you're taking care of your health? What happens when you're just hanging out at the end of the night? Going from the beginning of the day to the end of the night, right before going to bed. And you have a place where you can document that all. And what you can do is just write out the habit itself. You don't have to do the time. You could, if you like to, you can break it up in like morning, afternoon, evening. So you can do 3 blocks. Then you can break it down into the habit itself. And then right next to it, you can put an E for energizing or a D for draining, or you can write it out. But that's like a template that you can take for yourself. So now we get into the body sensations, right? Here we go. This is where it's like, oh, fuck. Okay. Like, what are these sensations for myself? So I want to give yourself grace to realize if you don't know what exactly that is, what that looks like, it's okay. I mean, especially with the busy schedule, and I mean, you're achieving big things and you're getting after it, and you're wanting to optimize all these areas of life. Sometimes we forget why we're even doing certain things for optimizing, right? We listen to everyone else, but we don't really come back to our body and understand, what do we want? What do we actually want? Does this resonate? And so for me, when I think about this and come back to what it is that I want, I connect back to like noticing it in my stomach, noticing a light feeling in my body. So I feel lightness. It's kind of like you can like jump up and down, like you're getting ready for a big game. I can notice some tingles, even back of the neck. That's a sign for me of like love, is like the back of the neck. And so when I feel that sensation with something of like, oh, this is what I want, and I'm connected to that, then I realize this is truly coming from a place of internally a drive of wanting this, rather than like someone telling me you should have this or you should do this. So those are certain sensations that I notice. I feel open, there's like an openness feeling to it. It feels ease. So that's there. And then there's even some fear that can come up in certain situations with changes that I'm not used to. So I believe, like I talked about this before, where sometimes I can feel with any win, the small wins I've talked about, where celebrating the small wins, they lead to big wins. I've felt like the shoe was supposed to drop on the other end. Like something bad always happens with anything good, is like what became a habit for me. And so to change that and just realize good things can just happen, like wins can just happen, that created some fear, but it's what I wanted. I wanted that new habit. So when that came up, I know for me, I have some, it feels kind of like this nervous, sick stomach. Like you feel a little sick in the stomach, but it's also kind of like an ooey gooey vibe is how I communicate it. It's just like ooh, like this might be fun. So those are some of the sensations I connect back to, right? But it's gonna be different for you, for what that looks like. So it really connects to what you want, really connects to the energizing feeling too for those habits. So the habits that do feel this lightness, this excitement, it can feel like you're drawn to it. Like you're just like, I'm excited to want to do this. Like it feels great. And then you can also have habits that are energizing for you, but you just haven't put enough reps in for these habits. So I come back to public speaking is a great example for me. Like this habit of speaking in front of a group of people, speaking for you here on the show. Like at first I was really nervous to do this, and it was like, oh my gosh, but I still had a desire deep down to want to do it. And as I put in more repetition, I became familiar with the habit. Then it became even more exciting to do it, and a little bit easier to show up. Because at first, like my body would be shaking. I'd be like, oh my gosh, can I do this? This is overwhelming. But that is a feeling of aliveness, which is really important to remember that this is natural. That aliveness is that like kind of nervous excitement energy. It's like just bubbling up inside, and you feel like you're gonna one of my friends, Annabelle, who was my somatic teacher, is just like that feeling like you're gonna explode with energy is how she puts it. And I resonate with that. I'm like, fuck yeah. Like I just want to explode with this energy. It's hard to take it all in. That's that aliveness. And for many moments, I know for my life, like many moments I wasn't able to connect to that energy. I'd only had like these moments throughout the day, or not throughout the day, but throughout my years where I could connect to it. And so that became a habit to focus on. So those are, again, energizing feelings. Now I want to get into the draining feelings. What could come up for you with draining? Draining could feel exhaustion. There could feel this intense pressure that comes up, this sinking feeling that can come up, this heaviness, just like, ugh, like I gotta do this again. Like this is not fun. You could have like your brain fog that could come up. A lot of pinballing all over the place in the mind could come up of just like, ugh, I gotta do this. Like I want to distract myself. I don't really want to do it, but I know I have to do it. So it's remembering with those habits, like it can feel draining for you. So one example that I'll give for you for mine is organizing my notes. So I use the Notes app on my computer and my phone, and I'll, throw ideas out there, things that I want to remember into this Notes app. But in the past, like I would have tons of notes, like so many notes. And so for my mental health, I think about it, like it would just feel so overwhelming to like have to go in there, dig through it. I felt this pressure of just wanting to delete it all. But there were some important ideas there. So what I focus on is to create a habit of going back and cleaning and decluttering it and using the ideas, implementing them into the next step. And it's like this wheel that's constantly in motion. Like I go back, I move it so that I'm always shrinking that specific note down, where it's getting everything that's in that note out. And then I can start with a blank note again. And that is one that I really don't like doing, but I do like the feeling at the end of things getting organized and pushed out. And so it can be draining of the habit itself, but it actually creates a positive result for myself. And that's really important to distinguish for you between the habits that are just straight up draining and they're like, this is weighing me down and really causing issues. And I think of another one for me was actually indoors, staying indoors. Like it's draining. Like I saw this stat where it was like on average American spends 90% of their time indoors. And I was not even hitting that. Like I was spending even more time indoors than 90%. And I just noticed how I was just feeling really like it was feeling heavy. I was feeling, this like really sad. And, you could say like depressed, in moments where I'm just like, damn it, dude, like what the hell is going on here? And that was just like this doom and gloom that was building in me. And so then I knew I had to change that behavior by getting outside as a new habit and creating movement as well, which is literally creating energy for the body. So staying inside for a long period of time, over 90% of my day, that's just straight up draining, right? So you have that habit, but then you have the habits that can feel draining in the moment, but actually create a positive result. And so that would be cleaning my notes. Like, yes, I don't like to clean the notes. But then once it's cleaned, there's a benefit there for me of like noticing which ideas I get to improve on and implement and move forward with. So that can give you an idea of distinguishing between the draining. And you can even put like, I'm trying to think of like a DE word could be for the draining, but energizing for the result. And then you can just put a D for just, it's straight up draining for you. And there's really no benefit for you of doing the habit. So taking that framework, bringing it into then the structure of you got morning, afternoon, evening, go through each one of those habits and identify what category it falls into for the energizing, for the draining, draining, but then energizing for the result. And what you'll notice as you go through your day is that you may not complete it all in your day, right? You may not be able to get every single habit. That's okay. Do the best that you can, because anything is better than nothing in this situation. And so if you just get the morning done and you're just like, oh, the day got away from me. Okay, cool. Focus on the morning then, right? And then you could do this a few weeks later to do another habit audit to try to get your full day. The goal is to work it all the way up to a full day to do this. And then you get to notice the patterns, right? So what's happening in the morning that might be really draining for you, where you could actually bring in an energizing habit, one of your burnout-proof habits for the body. What's like in the afternoon that could be really energizing for you, that you notice you're able to get inspiration and productivity is able to increase dramatically. Okay, you can identify that one. And then in the evening too, what happens before going to bed? Is it draining? Is it energizing for you? And I've had a few other conversations on here that you can go to for some techniques to try out and habits to implement for types of burnout-proof habits. But when you can start to see where you land on the percentage of which ones are the majority, what habits do you majoritarily do in the day? Is it mainly draining habits? Like if it's like a 60% draining, 40% energizing? Well, if you notice that, then you have to notice that as signals, because you are going to be moving eventually to hitting burnout. And I want to remind you, burnout doesn't happen overnight and your body's giving you these signals, but you have to recognize that when it comes to your habits, the majority of the time, or not the majority of the time, but the majority of your habits, if they can be energizing in your week, in your day, in your year, then you're able to move towards making burnout extinct and staying on that end of the spectrum. Because on one end, it's make burnout extinct. On the other end, it's hitting burnout. So what happens is this helps you to really see the bigger picture. And when you can notice those bigger pictures, it's then helping yourself to go back to starting small, picking one habit to focus on when it comes to draining. So identify the draining habit and then recognize what is the habit that would be energizing that I could do that would make this draining habit obsolete where it's possible, right? Because some habits you can't let go of. That could be if that's when you're visiting family and it can get tough with conversations that could come up. Okay, so if you're really struggling with a specific subject, if that's politics that comes up with family, okay, how can you minimize that habit of politics? Because it's not about your family, right? It's just about like there could be something that comes up in conversation that is really draining for you. So then the new habit could be, well, we're going to talk about anything but politics, right? And so you can lead the conversation. And so that could be an example. And when you start with one, that's going to create then the momentum to build from there for these other habits. And then you can notice which habits are really energizing for you. Could you do more of those energizing habits in the day? Thinking back to your burnout-proof habits, these habits that are energizing for you and connect you back to your body. Movement is a great one, where you go outside creating movement. And you can go out for a walk, go out for a run. Resistance training is another form of that, where you're connecting back to your body. And these burnout-proof habits, those energizing habits, what they help you to do with connecting back to your body is they help to close out the stress loops. So throughout your day, you're going to have these loops that open up for stress. And there's a message in those loops, a message that your body's trying to tell you of either an action you have to take, maybe something you got to stop doing. And it's for you to listen to that and then be able to take that message and then implement the action behind the message or to stop doing the action. And that can close the loop. But then there's that stress that's been built up in the body that has to release out of the body. And that's where it comes back to these burnout-proof habits, where you can reconnect with your body, notice that stress, and then just release it out. Body scan is another great burnout proof habit where you're actually taking the time to go through your entire body, starting from your head all the way down to your toes, and just take the time to reflect on that. Of like, what do you notice on your head? And we've done a few of these body scans throughout these different conversations, and so you can come back to that one to help you out, to then move the stress, the energy out. But this, coming back to this habit audit, that is what's so cool, is you get to see it all. See it all. And so it goes back to the more you understand something, the less fear can grow. So then you're not feeling stuck. You have now the information. And then it goes back to what I've talked about for different strategies. It's like, start small with the changes, and then celebrate the effort. Celebrate after you put the rep in for either a new habit or for one of your energizing habits. And I go back to literally, it's like physically celebrating for the body, where it's, for me, I tap both my shoulders, raise my arms up, I go, yeah. But I didn't start that way either. It was more of like a, yeah, like, here we go. And it does two things for the body. One, it reminds the body you want more of this. And it can be a way for the body to release dopamine, that reward. So then you're creating internal rewards, and you're not having to always rely on the external rewards, which is also really powerful. And so you have all these different tools to try out. So that right there is a habit audit for you. Take that time to further recap, to set it for the intention at least the night before that you're going to do a habit audit. Then break it up either on a piece of paper, on your notes, on your phone, or voice recording of what's happening in your morning, afternoon, evening for your habits. Then categorizing those habits. Which habits are energizing? Give you those lightness, it's different for everyone for sensations. There's some similarities too, of course, but it's like, do you feel light? Is there excitement there? So energizing. Then you have the habits that are just straight up draining, super draining, going to try to minimize them as much as possible or avoid them if you can. And then you have the habits that are draining for the actual action of it, but then could be energizing for the result, for what it produces for you. Thinking back to the notes, I'm the only one that can really organize my notes because I'm the only one that really knows my thoughts. Like, I don't see myself ever delegating that out. So those are then your three categories. And then once you have the big picture, start small. Start small with one habit that you're going to focus on, and then build from there for the momentum. And I want to remind you, if you haven't heard it yet today, I believe in you. You're absolutely fucking capable of this. I want you to know that. It is possible for you to make burnout extinct. And it comes back to our habits that we're doing in our day, and remembering that each day is a new day to reset against the burnout beast, because I talk about that, the burnout beast dragging towards hitting burnout. And it's remembering that you can battle it. You can make it possible for yourself to make burnout extinct. And you got this.